The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 47 different species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their warships were the size of mountains. Their weapons could burn entire continents in seconds. Their soldiers had never known defeat. High Sovereign sat on his throne made of black crystal. He was old, even by standards. His gray skin was covered with the scars of 100 battles he had fought in his youth. Now he commanded the greatest empire the galaxy had ever seen. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed rival empires, and brought peace through absolute power. When his scouts brought him news of a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, he barely looked up from his reports. "Another primitive world," said Scout Commander, bowing low before the throne. "The inhabitants call it Earth. They call themselves humans." "What do we know about them?" asked without interest. "They are weak, High Sovereign, soft bodies, short lives. They die after only 80 or 90 cycles. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no armor. They cannot survive in vacuum. They cannot breathe underwater. They are perhaps the most fragile species we have ever encountered." Waved his hand dismissively. "And their technology?" "Primitive. They discovered faster-than-light travel only 60 cycles ago. They have a small fleet of perhaps 200 warships. Their weapons cannot penetrate our basic hull plating. Their shields would fail against our weakest cannons." Paused and smiled. "They do not even have a unified government. They are divided into many nations that often fight each other." This made laugh. It was a cold, cruel sound that echoed through the throne room. "A species that fights itself. How have they survived this long?" "Unknown, High Sovereign, but they will not survive much longer." Finally looked at the holographic image of the blue planet floating before his throne. It was beautiful, he admitted. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. It would make a fine addition to his empire. The humans could serve as workers in his mines, or perhaps as exotic servants for his nobles. "Send Admiral," commanded. "Give him the 3rd Conquest Fleet. This should be a simple matter." Admiral was one of the finest military commanders in the Dominion. He had conquered 12 species personally. He had never lost a battle. When he received his orders, he felt almost insulted. The 3rd Conquest Fleet was one of the largest in the Dominion. 247 warships, 50,000 soldiers, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. "This is excessive," complained to his second-in-command, Captain. "We could conquer this Earth with 1/10 of this force." "The High Sovereign wishes to send a message," replied. "Other species are watching. They must see our power." Accepted this explanation. He was a soldier. He followed orders. The 3rd Conquest Fleet departed from with great ceremony. Thousands of citizens gathered to watch the massive warships rise into the sky. Flags flew. Songs were sung. Everyone knew that in a few weeks the Dominion would have a new conquest to celebrate. The journey to Earth took 18 days. Spent the time reviewing what little intelligence they had gathered about humans. He found them interesting in a pathetic sort of way. They were creative, he admitted. They had built impressive structures on their world. They had art, music, literature. They dreamed of exploring the stars. But they were also violent. Their history was filled with war. They had killed each other by the millions over disagreements about religion, territory, resources, and ideas. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization and had come close to using them several times. "Fascinating," muttered, reading a report about something called World War II. "They killed 50 million of their own kind in just 6 years, and they consider this a great victory." "They are savages," said with disgust. "Perhaps, but savages can be dangerous. We will not underestimate them." When the 3rd Conquest Fleet entered the solar system, ordered his communications officer to send the standard message. It was the same message the Dominion had sent to every species they had ever conquered. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth. You are now subjects of the Dominion. You will surrender all military vessels immediately. You will disband all military forces. You will accept governance. Resistance will result in the destruction of your population centers. You have 12 hours to respond. On Earth, the message was received by every government, every military base, every news station. Panic spread across the planet. People ran into the streets screaming. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders declared the end of days. But not everyone panicked. In a military command center beneath the mountains of Korea, Captain Park read the message calmly. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and lines on his face from years of service. He had joined the United Earth Defense Force when he was 20. He had served through the resource wars that had nearly torn humanity apart. He had helped negotiate the peace that had finally united Earth's nations under one flag. He had spent his entire career preparing for a threat from beyond the stars. Everyone had told him he was paranoid. Everyone had said aliens were science fiction. Everyone had been wrong. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sara, his communications officer. She was young, barely 30, with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "They want our response in 12 hours. What should we tell them?" Looked at the message again. Then he looked at his crew. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes, but they were also waiting for him to tell them what to do. "Sara," he said quietly, "open a channel." "To whom, sir?" "To them." Sara's fingers moved across her console. A moment later she nodded. "Channel open, sir." Stood up straight. He adjusted his uniform. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "This is Captain Park of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Indomitable. I am responding to your demand for surrender on behalf of humanity." He paused for just a moment. "We decline." He signaled for Sara to cut the transmission. The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at him. "Sir," Sara whispered, "did we just declare war on an alien empire?" "No," replied. He sat back down in his command chair and began pulling up tactical displays. "They declared war on us. We simply informed them that we intend to fight." Thousands of kilometers away, in a bunker even deeper underground, General received word of response. She was 61 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen too much. She had written her doctoral thesis on asymmetric warfare. She had spent 40 years preparing defense plans against enemies with superior technology. Everyone had called her plans fantasy. Everyone had said she was wasting her time. Now those plans were the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered quietly. "Wake the Hornets." All across the solar system, in asteroids and hidden bases and cargo containers drifting in empty space, thousands of small machines began to power up. They were humanity's first line of defense. They were not large or impressive. They had no crews, no shields, no fancy weapons. They were simply very fast, very quiet, and very deadly. They had no idea they existed. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. Admiral stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest warship in the Third Conquest Fleet, 3 kilometers long, crew of 8,000, enough weapons to glass a planet. He stared at the holographic display showing the human solar system. Earth hung in the center, blue and green and fragile. Between his fleet and that little world there was nothing. No defensive formations, no walls of warships, no orbital platforms firing at them. Just empty space. "This is wrong," Captain said quietly. He was standing beside, studying the same display. "They should be defending. They should be trying something." "Perhaps they have accepted their fate," replied. But he did not believe his own words. The human who had answered their message had not sounded like someone ready to surrender. He had sounded like someone ready to fight. "All ships advance," ordered. "Standard conquest formation. Scanners at maximum." The Third Conquest Fleet moved forward. 247 warships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the yellow sun. It was a beautiful sight, a display of overwhelming power. They passed the outer planets without incident. Gas giants with colorful clouds, frozen moons, nothing dangerous, nothing interesting. Then they reached the asteroid belt. The Crusher of Worlds was a heavy cruiser, crew of 2,000, veteran of 15 campaigns. It was positioned at the front of the formation, leading the advance. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. There was no warning, no flash of weapons fire, no explosion. The ship simply vanished. In its place was an expanding cloud of debris and frozen atmosphere. What happened? Demanded, report. His tactical officer was frantically checking his displays. Unknown, Admiral. No weapons fire detected. No enemy vessels in range. The Crusher of Worlds is simply destroyed. Before could respond, another ship died. The pride of a destroyer was torn apart by something moving too fast for sensors to track. Then a third ship. Then a fourth. Evasive maneuvers, shouted. All ships break formation. The fleet scattered. Ships twisted and turned, trying to escape whatever invisible enemy was killing them. But there was nowhere to hide. Whatever was hunting them could strike from any direction. In the next hour, lost 18 ships. 18 vessels destroyed by an enemy he could not see, could not find, could not fight. Admiral, his tactical officer said, his voice shaking, I think I have found them. Show me. The display zoomed in on a section of the asteroid belt. Among the rocks and debris, there were tiny objects, so small they were almost invisible. Each one was no larger than a personal transport. What are they? Asked. Autonomous weapons platforms, Admiral. The humans call them Hornets. They were hidden throughout the asteroid belt, thousands of them, perhaps tens of thousands. The tactical officer swallowed hard. They are launching kinetic projectiles, small metal rods accelerated to approximately 12% of light speed. Understood immediately. At that speed, a metal rod the size of his arm would hit with more force than a nuclear weapon, and these projectiles were almost impossible to detect. By the time sensors spotted them, they had already hit their targets. Target the platforms, ordered. Destroy them. We are trying, Admiral, but they are so small. Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat. Hitting targets this size is extremely difficult. In her bunker beneath the Korean mountains, General watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The fleet was in chaos. Ships were dying, and the aliens had no idea how to respond. She allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 is working, said Commander, her aide. He was 40 years old, a career officer who had served under for 15 years. They have lost over 30 ships now. It will not last, replied. They are learning, they are adapting. See how they are changing their formation. They are spreading out, making themselves harder targets, and they are getting better at detecting our Hornets. What do? We move to Phase 2, pressed a button on her console. All Hornet units begin withdrawal, lure them in. In the asteroid belt, the surviving Hornets began to retreat. They fell back toward Mars, toward Earth, drawing the fleet after them. Admiral saw the withdrawal and felt a moment of triumph. They are retreating. All ships pursue. Do not let them escape. Captain grabbed his arm. Admiral, wait, this could be a trap. Of course it is a trap, snapped. Everything about this battle has been a trap, but what choice do we have? We cannot turn back now. The High Sovereign would have us executed for cowardice. The fleet pressed forward. More ships died as the remaining Hornets struck from hiding, but slowly, painfully, they pushed through. They left the asteroid belt behind and entered the inner solar system. Mars hung before them, red and dusty and barren. Scanners showed human bases on its surface, mining facilities, research stations, military installations. Destroy them, he ordered, all of them. The warships opened fire. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds rained down on Mars. The human bases vanished in balls of fire. Thousands of humans died in seconds. But something was wrong. The bases had been almost empty. Where were the soldiers? Where were the ships? Then saw them. From behind the moons of Mars, human warships emerged. Not the pathetic vessels his scouts had reported. These were different, sleeker, faster, armed with weapons that glowed with unfamiliar energy. Where did those come from? Gasped. There were only 50 of them, 50 ships against more than 200, but they moved with a coordination that surprised. They did not form defensive lines. They did not try to protect each other. Instead, they scattered, attacking from every direction at once. Captain Park sat in his command chair aboard the Indomitable. His ship shook as enemy fire struck his shields. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded in, but he remained calm. Target their engines, he ordered. We cannot match their firepower, but if we cripple their mobility, we can pick them off one by one. Lieutenant Sora's fingers flew across her console. Targeting solutions locked, firing. The Indomitable's weapons were not powerful enough to destroy a warship, but they were precise. The shots struck exactly where wanted them, damaging engine systems and sensor arrays. All across the battlefield, human ships were doing the same thing. They were not trying to win this battle. They were trying to slow the enemy down, to buy time. They are sacrificing themselves, realized. They know they cannot win. They are just trying to delay us. Why? Asked. Did not know, but he suspected the answer would not be good for the Dominion. General watched the battle from her bunker. The human fleet was being destroyed. Ship after ship vanished from her display. Good soldiers, good people, all dying to buy a few more hours. Phase 3 is ready, Commander reported quietly. Closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as stone. Tell them to hold as long as they can, and prepare the evacuation of all remaining civilian centers. The bombardment will begin soon. She looked at the display showing Earth, her home, her world. Soon it would burn. But not forever. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, nuclear standoffs. They would survive this too. And then they would have their revenge. Admiral finally reached Earth orbit. It had taken him 4 days longer than planned. He had lost 43 warships. 43. It was unthinkable. It was the greatest defeat in military history. But he was here now, and humanity's defenses were broken. The human fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants. Their orbital platforms were destroyed. Their asteroid drones were exhausted. There was nothing left between the Dominion and the blue planet below. Begin the bombardment, ordered. His voice was cold. He no longer felt any curiosity about humans. He no longer saw them as interesting. They were vermin, dangerous vermin that needed to be exterminated. Which targets, Admiral? His weapons officer asked. All of them, every city, every military base, every structure that could shelter them. Watched Earth rotate slowly below him, leave nothing standing. The remaining 200 warships opened fire. Kinetic rounds fell from orbit like metal rain. Each one struck with the force of a nuclear bomb. Seoul vanished in a flash of light. Then Tokyo. Then Mumbai. Then London, Paris, New York, Lagos, Sydney. Millions died in the first hour. Tens of millions in the first day. From her bunker, General felt the ground shake with each impact. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Somewhere above her, her country was dying. Casualty reports, she asked quietly. Commander's face was pale. His hands trembled as he read from his display. Seoul is gone, is gone. The entire Korean peninsula has taken multiple strikes. Estimated casualties are. He stopped. He could not finish. How many? Pressed. 40 million. In Korea alone. Worldwide estimates are approaching 200 million and rising. Closed her eyes, 200 million, and the bombardment had only just begun. Open a channel, she said. All frequencies, I want the aliens to hear this. General is that wise. Do it. Moments later's face appeared on every screen on Earth, on every surviving human ship, and on every vessel in orbit. She was standing straight. Her uniform was covered in dust. Behind her, screens showed images of destruction, burning cities, fleeing refugees, bodies in the streets. My name is, she said. I am the commanding general of Earth's defense forces. I am speaking to the alien fleet currently destroying my world. On his flagship, Admiral paused the bombardment to listen. He was curious. What could this human possibly say that would matter now? You believe you have broken us, continued. You believe that by killing our people, you will make us surrender. You believe that we will beg for mercy. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was hard as iron. This tells me you have never understood what we are. Images appeared on the screen behind her, images from human history, trenches filled with bodies from the First World War, mushroom clouds rising over Japanese cities, mass graves from genocides, burning villages, refugee camps, battlefields. We are a species that has spent our entire existence at war with ourselves, said. We have perfected the art of destruction. We have split the atom. We have created weapons that could kill every living thing on our planet. We have built machines that think and taught them to help us kill more efficiently. Watch the images with growing unease. The humans had done all this to themselves, to their own kind. You think we are weak because we fight each other, continued. You think we are primitive because we have not conquered the stars. You are wrong. We have not conquered the stars because we have been too busy fighting ourselves. We have been training, practicing, perfecting our skills for thousands of years. She stepped closer to the camera. Her eyes burned with something had never seen before. It was not fear. It was not despair. It was rage. Pure, cold, controlled rage. You are not our enemy, Admiral. You are simply the latest thing we have decided to destroy, and we have never lost when we truly decided to win. The transmission ended. Stood in silence. Around him, his bridge crew shifted nervously. Nobody spoke. Resume bombardment, he finally ordered. Increase firepower. I want that planet sterilized. The ships fired again. More cities died. More millions perished. The atmosphere filled with smoke and ash. Fires burned across entire continents. But humanity did not surrender. They did not beg. They did not run. Instead, they attacked. From the outer solar system, ships emerged. Not warships. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, transport ships, civilian craft that had fled into the darkness when the invasion began. Now they were coming back, and they had been modified. Each ship was loaded with nuclear weapons, hundreds of them. Their engines had been overcharged to dangerous levels. Their crews knew they were not coming back. Captain Park commanded the lead ship. The Indomitable had been badly damaged in the earlier fighting. Half his crew was dead. Life support was failing, but his engines still worked. His weapons still fired. All ships, he broadcast to the ragtag fleet behind him. This is Captain Park. You know why we are here. You know what we must do. He looked at Lieutenant Sara. She was injured. A bandage covered half her face, but she was still at her station, still doing her duty. Any regrets? He asked her quietly. She smiled through her pain. I always wanted to see an alien, sir. Now I am going to see one very closely. Laughed. It was the first time he had laughed since the invasion began. All ships, he said, ramming speed, make them remember us. The human fleet accelerated. They did not try to evade. They did not try to survive. They simply aimed themselves at the largest ships and fired their engines at maximum power. Admiral saw them coming. Defensive fire stopped them. The weapons blazed. Human ships exploded, but there were too many. They came from every direction at once, and they were moving too fast to stop. The first ship hit a cruiser at nearly 1% of light speed. The impact vaporized both vessels instantly. The nuclear weapons on board detonated, creating a blast that damaged every ship within 1,000 kilometers. Then another hit, and another, and another. In her bunker, General watched the battle through the few satellites still functioning. She saw human ships dying by the dozens, but she also saw ships dying, more than she had hoped, more than she had dreamed. "They are doing it," Commander whispered. His voice was thick with emotion. "They are actually hurting them." "Yes," replied. Tears were running down her face, but her voice was steady. "They are." Captain Park's ship was one of the last. The Indomitable had taken dozens of hits. Fires burned in every compartment. The hull was breaking apart, but he was still alive, and his ship was still moving. Ahead of him loomed Admiral's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, the largest ship in the fleet, the symbol of power. Sora said, "It has been an honor." "The honor was mine, sir." Closed his eyes. He thought of his wife who had died in the first bombardment. He thought of his children who were hiding in a bunker somewhere, hopefully still alive. He thought of Earth burning below him. Then he opened his eyes and smiled. "For humanity," he said. The Indomitable struck the Eternal Dominion at full speed. The nuclear weapons in its cargo hold detonated on impact. Admiral had exactly half a second to feel surprise before he ceased to exist. The largest warship in the Third Conquest Fleet was gone, and with it, the commander who had thought conquering Earth would be easy. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. Humanity was not finished. Humanity was just getting started. The Battle of Earth lasted 9 days. 9 days of fire and death and destruction. 9 days of ships exploding in orbit while cities burned below. 9 days of humanity fighting with everything they had against an enemy that should have crushed them in hours. On the 10th day, it was over. Of the 247 warships that had entered the solar system, only 3 escaped. 3 battered, broken vessels limping away at maximum speed, their crews terrified and traumatized. The Third Conquest Fleet, the pride of the Dominion, had been annihilated. But the cost to humanity was beyond calculation. Earth was devastated. 60% of the population was dead. Every major city had been reduced to radioactive ash. The atmosphere was choked with debris and smoke that would take decades to clear. The planet's climate had been shattered. Nuclear winter was coming. General emerged from her bunker 3 days after the last ship fled. She was 61 years old, but she looked 100. Her hair had turned completely white. Her hands would not stop shaking. She walked through the ruins of what had once been a military base. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were soldiers. Some were civilians who had fled here seeking shelter. The air smelled of smoke and death. Commander walked beside her. He had aged too, they all had. "Casualty reports?" asked. It was the same question she had been asking for 9 days. The answer was always worse than before. "Final estimates are still coming in," said quietly. "But we believe approximately 4 billion dead, 60% of Earth's population." 4 billion. The number was too large to understand, too massive to feel. Had ordered the deaths of millions herself, sending ships on suicide runs, authorizing last stands that she knew would fail. She had done it to save the rest. She had done it because there was no other choice. But now, standing in the ruins, she wondered if it had been worth it. "What about the colonies?" she asked. "Mostly intact. Luna took some damage. Mars lost several bases, but the outer colonies were untouched. They are already beginning relief operations." Nodded slowly. The colonies. That was why they had fought so hard. That was why they had sacrificed so much. Not to save Earth. Earth might never recover, but to buy time for the colonies to survive. Humanity would go on, changed, but alive. Far across the galaxy, on the High Sovereign received the 3 surviving captains in his throne room. Captain was the senior survivor. He had taken command after Admiral's death. He had been the one to order the retreat. He had saved the 3 ships that made it home. Now he lay prostrate before the throne, trembling with fear. "Rise," commanded. His voice was ice. "Look at me." Forced himself to stand. He had never seen the High Sovereign angry before, was always calm, always in control, but now there was something in his eyes that made want to run. "Explain," said. "Explain how the greatest fleet in my empire was destroyed by primitives." Tried to speak. His voice cracked. He swallowed and tried again. "They did not fight like anyone we have ever encountered, High Sovereign. They did not try to defend their positions. They did not try to protect their civilians. They did not try to survive." "What do you mean?" "They attacked us with suicide ships, cargo vessels loaded with nuclear weapons, flying directly into our warships. When their cities were being destroyed, they launched attacks from the ruins. When their soldiers were dying, they laughed." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They enjoyed it, High Sovereign. They were dying by the millions and they were laughing. They sang songs as they flew their ships into our fleet. They celebrated each kill even as they knew they were about to die." Was silent for a long moment. "What is their current military capacity?" he asked. "Minimal, perhaps 20 functional warships, a handful of orbital platforms. Their planet is devastated. They could not repel even a minor incursion." "And their industrial capacity?" Hesitated. This was the part that terrified him most. "Unknown, High Sovereign. But in the final days of the battle, we intercepted communications from their outer colonies. They have settlements on 12 moons and 3 asteroid stations. They were untouched by our bombardment. And they were already beginning reconstruction. Factories were coming online. Shipyards were being built." Paused. "They are already building new ships." "What kind of ships?" "Warships, High Sovereign, nothing else. Every factory, every resource, every worker, all dedicated to a single purpose." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They call it the Vengeance Fleet." Stood up from his throne. He walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Millions of citizens lived their lives below, unaware that their empire had just suffered its greatest defeat in 3,000 years. "How many ships?" asked without turning around. "We do not know for certain, but based on their production capacity and available resources, we estimate they will have at least 200 warships within 3 years, perhaps more." "And their technology?" "They captured several of our vessels during the battle, damaged ships that they boarded and seized. They are already studying our technology, reverse engineering our weapons, improving upon our designs." Closed his eyes. He had ruled the Dominion for 200 years. He had conquered 47 species. He had never felt fear. He felt it now. "We could attack them again," offered desperately. "Strike before they rebuild. We have other fleets. We could gather our forces and—" "No," said High Sovereign. "No," turned to face. "We attacked them once. We killed billions of their people. We destroyed their world. And what did they do? They destroyed our fleet. They killed our admiral. They drove us from their system." He walked back to his throne and sat down heavily. "If we attack them again, they will not simply defend themselves. They will come for us. They will bring their vengeance fleet to our. They will do to us what we did to them." "But High Sovereign, they are just humans. They are weak. They are primitive." "They are insane," said quietly. "They are a species that spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. They have survived ice ages, plagues, nuclear standoffs, environmental collapse. They have stared extinction in the face over and over, and they have always won." He looked with something that might have been respect. "We are not their enemy. We are simply the latest thing they have decided to destroy, and I do not intend to give them the chance. Summoned his council. For 3 hours they debated. Some wanted to attack immediately. Some wanted to seek allies. Some wanted to fortify thee and prepare for invasion. In the end, made the decision. Send word to every species in the Dominion, he commanded. Send word to our rivals, our enemies, everyone who might consider expansion. Tell them what happened here. What message, High Sovereign? Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a ruined blue planet orbiting a yellow star, a wounded species was rebuilding, preparing, waiting. Tell them this, said. You only go to war with humans once, and your empire pays the price. The message was sent to every corner of the galaxy. Every species that received it archived it carefully. Scholars studied it. Military commanders memorized it. Politicians debated its implications. And everyone agreed on one thing. Never, under any circumstances, attack Earth. Because humanity does not forget, humanity does not forgive, and humanity never ever gives up. 12 years had passed since the Battle of Earth. The scars remained. They would always remain. Craters where cities had stood, mass graves where billions were buried, monuments to the dead that stretched for kilometers. But humanity had not died. Humanity had rebuilt. The population had grown again. The atmosphere was slowly clearing. New cities rose from the ashes, built with technology that combined human innovation with captured designs. Ships filled the skies, traveling between Earth and the dozens of colonies that now dotted the solar system. And the Vengeance fleet had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 500 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything that had ever built. Each one crewed by soldiers who had grown up with stories of the invasion, who had been raised on the memory of 4 billion dead. General had died 3 years after the war. Her heart had given out. Some said it was the stress. Others said she had simply waited long enough to see humanity safe and then let herself rest. Commander had taken her place. He was older now, gray-haired and weathered, but he still served, training the next generation of soldiers. And there was a new generation, young men and women who had been children during the invasion or who had been born in the years that followed. They had grown up angry. They had grown up hungry for revenge. One of them was Shin. She was 34 years old, born in the ruins of, orphaned in the bombardment, raised in the underground shelters where humanity had survived the nuclear winter. She had joined the government at 18, risen through the ranks with ruthless efficiency, and now served as Earth's chief diplomat. She was not soft, she was not kind, she was not interested in forgiveness. But she was smart, and she knew that revenge was a dish best served cold. The message had come from the Dominion 6 months ago. High Sovereign, old and tired after 12 years of waiting for an attack that never came, had requested a meeting. He wanted to discuss peace. He wanted to discuss cooperation. He wanted to make sure humanity never came for him. The human parliament had debated for weeks. Some wanted to reject the offer. Some wanted to send the Vengeance fleet instead of diplomats. The vote had been close. In the end, they had decided to send Shin. She arrived with a small delegation. 2 guards accompanied her. One was an old man with gray temples and a slight limp, Admiral Park. He had survived the war by miracle. His ship had been one of the last to attack, and he had been thrown clear of the explosion that destroyed his vessel. A rescue team had found him floating in space, barely alive. Now he served as personal protector. He rarely spoke, but his eyes never stopped watching. The other guard was a young man named. He was Commander's son, born in the bunkers during the worst of the bombardment. He had never known a world at peace. He had trained since childhood to fight and kill. The palace was magnificent, towers of crystal and metal reaching toward the sky, gardens filled with alien plants, halls decorated with the trophies of conquered worlds. Shin walked through it all without showing any emotion. Around her, nobles watched in silence. She could feel their eyes on her. She could smell their fear. Good. High Sovereign received them in his throne room. He was older than she had expected. His gray skin had darkened with age. His movements were slow and careful. He looked like what he was, an old man tired of war. "Welcome to our," said. His voice was formal, careful. "We are honored by your presence." Bowed precisely the correct amount. Not too deep, which would show weakness. Not too shallow, which would show disrespect. Exactly right. "Thank you for receiving us, High Sovereign. We have come to discuss the terms of our cooperation." Studied her, she was young, so young, but there was something in her eyes that reminded him of the general who had broadcast that message during the battle, the same cold fire, the same controlled rage. "You could have come with demands," said slowly. "You have 500 warships. We could not stop you if you chose to attack." "No," agreed, "you could not." "Then why did you not? Why did you not come for revenge?" Smiled. It was a thin, sharp smile that did not reach her eyes. "We considered it, High Sovereign. The vote in our parliament was very close. Many of our people wanted to come here with fire and death. They wanted to do to you what you did to us." She paused, letting him imagine it, letting him feel the fear. "But we decided that conquest was inefficient. We have learned from your example. Empires built on force eventually crumble. The species you conquered hate you. They wait for any sign of weakness. The moment you fall, they will tear you apart." She stepped closer to the throne. Admiral Parkin moved with her, shadows at her back. "We do not want to conquer you. We want to partner with you. Your technology combined with our determination. Your resources combined with our creativity. Together, we could build something greater than either of us could achieve alone." Considered this. It was a reasonable offer, more than reasonable. It was generous. Too generous. "And if we had refused?" he asked. Smile widened slightly. "Then we would not be having this conversation, High Sovereign. We would be having a very different one, in the ruins of this palace." The room was silent. Every present felt a chill run down their spine. Looked at the young woman standing before him. She was small by standards, fragile-looking, harmless. But she represented a species that had killed over 200,000 of his soldiers, a species that had destroyed his greatest fleet, a species that had spent 12 years preparing for war while pretending to rebuild. And she was offering peace. "I believe," said slowly, "that we can work together." The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the Dominion and United Earth signed a treaty of mutual cooperation, trade agreements, technology sharing, military alliances against common threats. It was the beginning of a new era. As the human delegation prepared to leave, called Admiral Park aside. "You were there," said quietly. "At the battle, I read the reports. You were the one who destroyed my flagship." Park looked at him with steady eyes. He did not apologize. He did not explain. "Yes," he said simply. "Why did you do it? You knew you would die. Why did you fly your ship into mine?" Park was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "Because you hurt my people, because you killed my wife, because you burned my world." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "And because someone had to show you that we would never stop, never surrender, never forgive." He looked with something that might have been pity. "You are lucky, High Sovereign. You are lucky that we decided peace was more useful than revenge. Because if we had not, nothing in this galaxy could have stopped us from destroying everything you have ever built." He walked away without waiting for a response. Watched him go. Then he turned to his closest advisor. "Send word to every species in the Dominion," he said. "Send word to our rivals, our enemies, everyone who might consider attacking Earth. Remind them of what happened to us. Remind them of the price we paid." What should the message say, High Sovereign? Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 500 human warships were patrolling, waiting, ready. Tell them this, he said. You only go to war with humans once, and your empire pays the price. The message spread across the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every civilization remembered it. And for the next 1,000 years, no one was foolish enough to attack Earth again. Because humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. And humanity always, always wins.